Single dad answered the door, excited for his date. Then she whispered, "My kids are outside." It had been 3 years since Daniel had gone on a date. 3 long years of late-night diaper changes, microwave dinners, and bedtime stories read through exhaustion. At 37, he wasn't looking for romance. Not really. But his 8-year-old daughter Lily had insisted he try. "You deserve to smile again, Daddy," she'd said, drawing a heart around his dating app photo with her pink crayon. So when the doorbell rang that Saturday evening, Daniel's heart raced like a teenager's. He straightened his flannel shirt, checked the mirror, decent enough, and opened the door with a hopeful grin. Standing there was Emma. 30-something. Auburn hair and soft curls, a navy blue dress that looked simple yet perfect. She smiled nervously, clutching her purse. But before Daniel could even say hello, she leaned in and whispered, "My kids are outside." He blinked. "Your kids?" She nodded, eyes glistening. "I didn't plan to bring them, I swear. The babysitter canceled last minute, and I didn't want to bail on you again. They're in the car. Just give me 1 minute to explain." Daniel felt his plans of a peaceful dinner slowly crumble. But before he could respond, he heard the faint sound of giggling outside. 2 little voices, 1 boy and 1 girl. He smiled awkwardly. Well, I guess dinner just turned into a family night. 15 minutes later, the scene in his living room was something between chaos and comedy. Emma's son Eli, 6, was teaching Lily how to build a tower out of couch cushions, while her daughter Mia, 4, had already claimed Daniel's lap, telling him all about her sparkle unicorn. Emma sat on the edge of the sofa, embarrassed. "This is not what I wanted for our first date," she said quietly. Daniel laughed, handing Mia a juice box. "Honestly, this is real life, and real life doesn't wait for perfect moments." Something in his tone made Emma's shoulders relax. They ended up skipping the fancy dinner reservations and ordering pizza instead. The 4 of them sat on the floor, eating slices off paper plates while watching the Lego movie. Lily whispered to her dad mid-movie, "She's nice, Daddy, and her kids are fun." Daniel squeezed her hand, smiling faintly. "Yeah, sweetheart, they are." Later that evening, when Emma tucked her sleepy kids into their car seats, she turned to Daniel with tears in her eyes. "You didn't have to do all this," she said. "Most guys would have closed the door the second I said kids." Daniel shook his head. "You don't apologize for being a parent. You're doing your best, and that's beautiful." She looked at him for a long moment. "You're a good man, Daniel." He chuckled softly. Just a dad who knows what it feels like to try and hold everything together. Weeks passed, and that one unexpected evening turned into many. Sometimes they met at the park while their kids played tag. Sometimes they cooked dinner together after bedtime stories. Their lives blended quietly, not in a rush, but in small, gentle ways. Then one rainy Sunday afternoon, while the kids built pillow forts in the living room, Emma whispered, "You know, that night I showed up at your door. I was about to give up on dating completely. I thought no one would ever want someone with 2 kids. Daniel smiled, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. "Funny. I thought no one would ever want someone with one." They both laughed in the kind of laughter that felt like healing. A year later, on the same porch where it all began, Daniel stood again, this time in a suit. Lily held a small bouquet of daisies, beaming as Emma walked down the short path, her kids skipping beside her. There were no fancy decorations, no big audience, just them under a warm sunset sky. When the vows were done, Daniel looked around at the 3 smiling faces who had turned his quiet, lonely house into a home full of laughter and life. He whispered almost to himself, "Guess that canceled babysitter wasn't such bad luck after all." Emma laughed, tears glimmering in her eyes, and pulled him close. Sometimes, love doesn't knock the way you expect. Sometimes, it shows up with 2 kids in the car and a heart just as tired and hopeful as yours. And when it does, you don't close the door. You open it wide. 2 years later, the house that once echoed with silence now pulsed with laughter, running footsteps, and the occasional argument over whose turn it was to feed the dog. Daniel stood by the kitchen counter on a Sunday morning, watching as sunlight poured through the windows, casting golden streaks over the chaos. Lily, now 10, was helping Mia braid her hair for their pretend wedding, while Eli tried to pour cereal, without spilling half the milk on the table. Emma came in wearing Daniel's old hoodie, her hair messy and her smile sleepy. "Morning, love," Daniel said, handing her a cup of coffee. She took a sip, looked around at the mayhem, and sighed happily. "Remember when it was just you and Lily? You must have had peace and quiet back then." Daniel chuckled. "Peace, yes, but not this." He gestured toward the children, who were now debating whether the dog should wear a bow tie. "Not this kind of noise, the good kind." Emma leaned against him, her voice soft. "You gave us something we didn't know we were missing." Daniel smiled, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Funny, I was thinking the exact same thing." That afternoon, the family drove out to the small lake just outside town, the same spot where Daniel had first brought Emma and her kids for a picnic 2 summers ago. The water shimmered under the sun, and the air was filled with the sound of laughter and distant birds. Eli was trying to teach Lily how to skip stones, while Mia sat beside Daniel, dipping her tiny toes into the cool water. "Daddy," she said, using the name naturally, without hesitation. "Do you think the fish can hear us talking?" Daniel smiled. It still hit him sometimes. How natural that word sounded coming from her mouth. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe they like listening to happy people." She giggled. "Then they must love us," he nodded. "Yeah, I think they do." As the day faded, Emma sat beside him on the grass, watching the children play. The golden hour light touched everything with warmth. Her hair, the water, even Daniel's worn-out sneakers. "You ever think about how crazy it was?" she asked softly. "That night I showed up with my kids, terrified you'd send me away." Daniel nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "I think about it all the time. If I'd said no that night, I would have missed everything that matters most to me." Emma smiled, eyes glistening. "You saved us, Daniel." He turned to her. "No, Emma, you saved me. You made our house a home again." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for a long time, they just sat there, watching their kids splash and laugh in the fading light. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Daniel tucked the blanket around Lily and lingered for a moment. Her face, peaceful in sleep, reminded him of how far they'd come, from nights filled with loneliness to a home brimming with love. He walked into the living room where Emma sat by the fireplace, a cup of tea in her hands. "Hey," she said quietly. "You okay?" Daniel smiled. "Yeah, just thinking how lucky I got." Emma chuckled. "You mean we got lucky?" He nodded. "Yeah, we all did." She stood, took his hand, and guided him toward the window. Outside, the moonlight spilled across their yard, where the kids had left their toys scattered, signs of a day well lived. "Do you ever think love just shows up when it's supposed to?" she asked. Daniel thought for a moment. "I think love shows up when you finally stop waiting for perfect and just open the door." Emma's eyes softened. "You and your doors," he laughed. "Well, one opened mine to everything I didn't know I needed." They stood there in the quiet glow of their shared life. 2 hearts that had once been broken, now whole again. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the sounds of laughter that had long since faded into dreams. And somewhere in the silence, love lingered, not the kind that arrives with fireworks, but the kind that stays, grows roots, and never leaves.